Hi, welcome to the channel. I'm Steve Bradford, I'm a clinical nurse specialist, and I specialise in working with adults, children and young people with mental health issues, and particularly specialising in autism. Today I just wanted to talk briefly about this notion of a surge in autism diagnosis or ADHD diagnosis or any kind of neurodiversity or neurodivergent diagnosis. And just have a quick chat around that because there are huge waiting lists in the UK for um, young people to have autism diagnosis. I worked in community mental health teams um, doing stage one assessments with families and young people where there was a possibility of autism or ADHD. And this was for young people between the age of 11 and 18 in that particular county at that point in time. And this was just as COVID came in, there were 16,000 people on the waiting list in that one county. Um, and that's probably gone up now. Um, and that's just 11 to 18. So the under 11s are referred to paediatricians, and the waiting lists are equally as long. So why is this happening? And I think there are a couple of reasons this is happening. Our understanding of neurodiversity and of autism, ADHD, dyslexia, dyspraxia, um, and these various different neurodiversities is increasing significantly. And I think with the event of social media, the availability of information, we have so much information at hand in our pockets now, and professionals are just becoming much more aware of these young people. Um, and I think as a result that, you know, young people have are on these waiting lists. They're being assessed for neurodiverse conditions, and um, parents and relatives see reflections of themselves and their own childhood in those children as well. So there has been an increase in adults wanting assessments, and I don't see this as necessarily as a bad thing. Look, understanding autism, getting the diagnosis, whether you believe that diagnosis is the right terminology, that recognition that you have had that assessment and that you have are autistic or you have ADHD can be really, really powerful, and it can be life changing. It doesn't change who you are, but it changes how you interact with the world and potentially how people interact with you. And that can be life changing. That can be the difference between having a successful career or really struggling through life with getting a job, holding a job, and maintaining a job. So it's really important. Um, but there's look, autism and ADHD has probably always been there. We've just never really recognized it. There are eccentric characters throughout history, and there are many, many adults in later life, 50, 60, 70 plus now being diagnosed with ADHD, with autism. That's been there all their lives. So it's just not been recognized in the way we're recognizing it now. So whilst there are a lot of young people and children now being diagnosed, equally there are a lot of people later in life. And that means, if you think about it, that means 60, 70 years ago, autism was still around. It just wasn't recognized. Those people were seen as underachievers. They struggled in school, or maybe they excelled in certain subjects at school and were seen as being particularly bright. But now we understand that that may have been part of their autism or part of their neurodiversity. But there's this notion that, if you think about it from an evolutionary perspective, that look, we've evolved. I think Temple Grandin was quoted in an interview as saying something along the lines that look, if it wasn't for autistic people, we'd all still be sat in a cave around a fire, engaging in idle chit chat. We wouldn't have the buildings, the structures, and the science and our understanding of the world that we have today. It was autistic people that brought that. But if you think about it from just a basic, let's strip this back and just think about this from a very, very basic evolutionary perspective. Arguable that people with autism and ADHD and dyslexia and people who see the world differently have always been there, and that was necessary for our survival and for us to evolve. If you think about ADHD, in a sense, they would have made the perfect hunter. And initially, you think about that, how's that so? You know, hunting's a very precise skill. But look, people with ADHD would have made ideal hunters. They go out, they're distracted by anything and everything. So as they're moving through the wilderness, their focus is pulled away from one thing. If there's movement in the bushes, if there's a sound, if there's a change in the light, their instant distraction to that could have been the difference between them identifying prey or completely missing it because they were focused in the wrong place. So what we see as inattention now could arguably be positive if you're hunting. You in the woods, there's some movement in the bushes, you're distracted over to that, it's your prey, and then the hyper focus comes in on that prey. And you know, people with ADHD talk about hyper focus when something that they're particularly interested in or something they particularly need, and they need to eat and they need that prey. So the hyper focus would then kick in. They would become hyper focused on that animal, and nothing is going to stop them until either that animal has fully escaped or they've successfully killed. And then they can take that back to the tribe and they can eat. So ADHD may have had a role in our evolution and in our survival, but people with ADHD may not have been good at other aspects, where people who have more of a kind of autistic traits may have been much better. So growing crops, staying back and farming for the tribe or the village was also really, really important. You know, that forward planning that autistic people can often be very good at, and knowing what's coming, and I'll talk about this in future videos, is also really, really important. So, you know, if you think about it, the autistic person would have sowed the crops in a dead straight line. That attention to detail would have been really important to them. They probably wouldn't have been able to cope or live with the fact that the crops were just randomly sown in a field. You know, organizing into different types of crops in different areas, organizing the seeds, working out when the seeds need to be planted and what season they need to be planted in, when to harvest the crops. All of that kind of that's essential for our survival. It was essential for the tribe's survival or the village to survive as well. So, you know, those autistic traits would have come in really, really handy there. And then the dwellings that we lived in, we moved out of caves into dwellings. At some point, mankind decided that living in a cave wasn't the best idea, and they started to build. And the autistic mind is very good at patterns, very good at visual, and you know, autistic people are often very good at things like engineering. So kind of working out those structures, working out how to build things, working out how to use materials may also have been quite a powerful autistic trait that moved us out of the caves and moved us into dwellings. And from there, as we've evolved and as those neurodivergent minds have evolved, they've gone on to play really, really pivotal parts in our evolution and how we've moved into modern society. And arguably, look, we wouldn't have the tech or the scientific breakthroughs or the mathematical breakthroughs. Would we ever have got into space if it wasn't for autism and ADHD? Well, who knows? You know, more research is needed, but it's an interesting concept. So, is there a wave or a tidal wave or a surge in autism diagnosis? Well, yeah, there is. But at the end of the day, is that because autism was always there and we've just got much better at identifying it and recognizing that we need to change as society in order to allow people with autism and other neurodiversities and ADHD to live successfully within our societies, and we need to design society slightly different to accommodate. Um, you know, for me, that's the crux of this. It's about, it's always been there, it's always going to be there, and it's not something we should try to eradicate, because if we do, I think mankind's going to have a real problem on its hands. Um, it's about learning. It's about learning how uh, neurotypical and neurodiverse people can live together. And there's another one of my videos um, on this. You can look at the double empathy um, paradigm video, um, and look at how you know we just see the world from a different perspective. We're not different. It's not wrong. There's no wrong or right. It's just different, and it's crucial to our evolution. Anyway, look, probably talked too much again. I hope you've really enjoyed this rambling about autism, and please check out my YouTube channel at Autism-Talks, or have a look on my TikTok, or my Instagram. And if you like this video, if you want me to talk more, please let me know, and I'll do some more. Anyway, thank you very much.